Hey, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host, Connie, and today we are here with Book 4, Episode 1 of The Dragon Prince. This is just a reminder, a donation reward for Smurf, and is our replacement for Total Drama The Redonkulous Race. And it's been quite a while since we've gotten to Dragon Prince. I think a couple years. And it's just I just haven't been able to get to it. The thing is, where we left off felt like it should have been the ending. Like, and this is kind of a big issue I have. Like, originally there was planned to be 5 seasons, but they made the volume 3 ending feel so finite until basically the end. Where it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna clearly keep this going. And I just feel like with the scale of things and everything, it should have been the end. Not every series needs to go on forever. Not every series needs a bunch uh, of seasons. But like I said, it was originally meant to go on for 5, but then they announced apparently in 2020, I believe, that they were going to change it to 7, which extending it is not the play, my dudes. This is not the kind of series that needs to be extended or honestly would benefit from it. This is the kind of series that needs to have a finite ending, that needs to just get there. Something like, Gravity Falls, or the series that it's kind of a spiritual successor to, Avatar The Last Airbender. Shows that had a very finite runtime. Things that didn't need to go on forever, and again, would have been hurt if they did. So, I think that this was a mistake on their part. Now, I don't know how this is going to go, so I can't say for sure, but just from initial instincts and everything. This feels like it was a mistake. This feels like it was the wrong move for them to make. There's going to be a recap at the beginning of this that'll tell us exactly what happened last time, so we'll have that. No worries there. But I will say I feel like we should at least have ended this stuff with Viren already. It just feels artificial to keep pushing it on at this point. And I think that's why I waited so long after it came out to get to this, to get to book 4. Because it's like I've been putting it off because I feel like it shouldn't be continuing in the first place. At least not in the same way with the same villains and everything. It just feels like it should already be over. Now, moving from that though, because I don't want to just spend this entire time talking about that, there are a couple things I do know about this, because it's, with as much time as I've waited to get to this, it's pretty much impossible to not know a couple things. I won't say what they are right now, because I don't know when they happen or exactly how they're implemented yet. But I know one thing that affects more of the wider show, and I know one thing that is a character thing. I'll say that specifically. But I've also heard very mixed reactions on this, not just from people in the Discord server, but in general, since this originally came out. I've heard mixed reactions all over the internet about this. Some people say it's good, maybe not as good as the other 3 volumes, but still good. Some people say it's bad, and some people just say it's like it's just kind of eh. I haven't heard anyone like really praise it or like really deride it though. I haven't heard like the heavy side to either side. So, as always, I will form my own opinion, but compared to the first three volumes, it's definitely a more of a lukewarm reaction, it seems, from the general audience. I don't know what to expect. I just don't. Um, there's a lot of things, like I said, though, that should have been resolved by now. If they were going to continue, and even if they were just going to go to the originally planned 5 seasons, then they should have had a lot of stuff resolved by now. Extending it to 7 makes it a little more acceptable that they don't, but at the same time, it still feels like certain things are overdue for that. I really hope this turns my thoughts around because I've been honestly putting this off for so long because I've just been so worried about it and so just annoyed that it's still continuing in the manner that it is. And so I'm hoping it proves me wrong. And mind you, I hope everything impresses me. But I'm really hoping this proves me wrong because I kind of feel like I need it, to be fair. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. This recap is definitely going to help, though, because there's certain things I remember from last time, but not enough. It's been a while again. I tried to start rewatching it through a reaction, and it just fell off. I just stopped. So I have not seen anything more than like the first half of season 1 in a couple years. So yeah, this should be fun. But I'm very much hoping that I end up enjoying it, especially because it is a donation reward for Smurf. Um, but we'll see how it goes. We'll judge it based on its own merits, not on what I've heard other people say, because again, I don't really know much spoilers. Just a couple things, and in terms of general thoughts on the volume, I don't like. I only know some like mixed reviews here and there. So yeah. Either way, let's get this going. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black and fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. I don't know where this is going exactly. Like, I don't know exactly what to expect from all of this. But I can say, just based off of this first episode back, out of... How many are there in this volume? This book? Let me check real quick. I actually kind of want to know that. 9. There's only 9. Interesting. Out of the 9 episodes and everything, just based on this first episode, this was a really good start to the season. Like, this actually quelled a lot of my fears on just a lot of things. Like, visually, it's gorgeous. It's probably prettier than any of the previous volumes, and previous volumes have been really good looking. The only one that I had issue with was Volume 1, and that's only because of the frame rate issues, which they did on purpose, because they were trying to, like, make up for something else. I don't remember exactly what it was. But they took that away because the fans did not like that. As good as the story and everything was, the fans did not like the issues with the frame rate. But just and even aside from just how pretty it was, it's like we caught up with our characters, even though we have a 2 year time skip. We caught up with things enough. It didn't feel like it left us too in the dark about everything. The only thing that we're really confused about is Rayla's disappearance, her leaving on his birthday at some one of the past 2 years, I guess. um, that's the only thing we're kind of left in the dark about. Like comparing this to Young Justice, where it's like, oh, time skip, now everything's different, and you're just expected to go with it without any explanation, without any catching up. It's like that I hate. I hate that so much because it ruins the immersion and flow of a series to do that. And it completely ruined Young Justice for me because they did it multiple times. It's not that they just did it once and you had to get used to it once. They did it multiple times, like 2 or 3 times, and it just absolutely ruined the immersion of the series for me. I just completely lost interest. And so now with this, we have a 2 year time skip, which a lot of shows have done. One Piece did it, Naruto did it, and so on and so forth. A lot of anime do it, and Dragon Prince is inspired by anime, just like Avatar was. Um, so having a 2 year time skip is actually not that bad of an idea, and especially after such a big finale as last time. Volume or book three, it is book book three. Volume is Ruby. Book three ended on such a big high note. Like I was saying, I felt it should have ended at that point because it felt like that could have been the conclusion. And I acknowledge that I was not even thinking about how a time skip, I didn't even know how long the time skip would be, by the way, could give it kind of the same feeling as one of those like shonen anime or other shows that have done that, to where it actually works in its favor. I have to keep bringing back One Piece because it's my favorite show of all time, my favorite piece of media of all time. Um, the time skip in One Piece was not only just set up perfectly, it's definitely better than Dragon Prince's. I'll say that right now because it was actually set up ahead of time. It was made clear, like, oh yeah, we're about to hit a time skip. Like we're actually actively building to that. And then afterwards, it's the reuniting of the crew. It's the crew coming back together after 2 years, everything kind of rejoining and the adventure starting new in the new world. And so it's probably, in my eyes, at least from what I've seen, the best example of a 2 year time skip in anything, or just not even just necessarily 2 years, just a time skip. It handles it so excellently. And I'm not just saying that because of how big of a One Piece nerd I am. I'm actually as big of a One Piece nerd as I am because of how well I think that is executed, among many other things. But I just think it's so well handled by Oda. And I think it's actually extremely well handled here, too. Because again, having that big war at the end of book three made it feel finite, but also having it show that it's clearly going to continue makes moving into the future and having a time skip actually work. It makes it feel natural. And again, it gets you back into things without too much trouble. Everything is explained to you pretty easily. Callum is the High Mage now, which is obviously fitting. Ezrin is still the king. We see where kind of everybody's at except Rayla. Rayla is just mentioned in this episode. And again, she's the one dark horse right now, but it's very clear we're going to find out why she left at the same time. It's very clear that we will be finding that out. We're catching up with Viren and Claudia and finding out how she brought him back, and that their goal throughout this book is going to be to find and rescue Erebos from his prison, and that he will then be able to make the resurrection permanent as long as he's freed within 30 days. Otherwise, Viren turns back into a corpse. Which, unfortunately, they're probably going to find and free him. As much as I would rather Viren turn back into a corpse, it's probably going to happen. And I know the next season, like I said before, is also under the Mystery of Aravos subtitle. So it seems like that's just kind of where it's going. It's kind of like Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. It's like they both are Naruto, but Shippuden has an extra additional subtitle to it. This is still the Dragon Prince, but it also has the Mystery of Erebos tacked on. It's not a bad idea, but I'm wondering if this is going to remain for the rest of the volumes, like up until the end of Volume 7, or if, like, after Volume 5, or maybe, well, I would say 5. After Volume 5, or Book 5, I keep saying volume, I don't know why. After Book 5, maybe they'll go to a different title at that point. I don't know. But I was very worried about how this would go. Because, again, I knew about the time skip ahead of time. And luckily, again, I liked it. And it was a light episode. Not too much heaviness happened. The most heavy stuff was with Viren and Claudia and their plans for the future. We almost thought there was a plot against Ezran, at least I did. When in reality, it was very clear that that ended up not being the case. And it was just a surprise party. It's like, okay, I can dig that. It is a very light episode. It's definitely meant to just bring us back into the swing of things. Meant to reintroduce the characters, show us what they're doing now, and just get back into it. But there has been a specific plot point in this episode that you may have noticed I haven't even briefly mentioned yet. Because I wanted to save that for last, because it was easily my favorite part of the episode. You guys are going to have to tell me, because I'm not going to go through all the episodes again of last volume, or last book, just to try and remember. But you guys are going to have to tell me if their romance, Amaya and Janai's romance, was actually canonized in book 3. I keep doing that. I'm gonna keep doing that. Was their romance actually canonized in book 3, or was it just hinted at and this is the canonization? Because I don't remember if it was actually canonized, if there was actually admittance to it, or if it was just like maybe some longing looks or something. But this scene was my favorite of the episode, not just because of the gay, but let's be honest, the gay is a big part of it. But the visuals were the best in this scene. It was visually stunning. From the beauty of the scenery to the fire elf dance that they were doing, was absolutely gorgeous. And obviously, the proposal was fucking beautiful, and it was wonderful. Plus, honestly, I kind of enjoyed seeing Amaya caught extremely off guard by the fact that she got it so wrong. Like, Amaya can be kind of cute at times, you know? Like, she's big, she's strong, she's badass, and kind of hot, let's be honest. Not even kind of hot, she's just hot. But it's kind of fun to see her caught off guard like that, like in a cute way, not like caught off guard like, oh, something bad is going to happen. No. And seeing her like realize she got it so wrong, it's like you can tell she's embarrassed. You can tell like she's like, oh shit, what did I do? It's so good. And then them sharing the kiss, it's like you'll have seen it by this point, but yeah, that's the thumbnail. It's like, I can't help it, okay? I'm gay as fuck. It's like you're gonna have two beautiful women share a kiss after getting engaged. It's like, yeah, that's gonna get to me a bit. And this is actually something I wanted to talk about, by the way, because I had heard someone mention this. I don't remember where. I think it was probably on Twitter, but this is something I heard mention. And it doesn't spoil anything for this book, by the way. So just saying that right off the bat. It was about the first three volumes, and I think, or the first three books, and I think it was actually something that was said before book four came out. But this person was like complaining that about Dragon Prince not delivering on its promise to feature queer representation. Because Dragon Prince, when it first started, promised that it would contain queer representation, that it would highlight that within the series. And the first three books had very little of that. Like, I think the only notable queer representation you see are between the two queens, who were only in a flashback and both died, which, people are not a fan of the entire killing the queers trope. Um, but then there was also Rayla's commander. I don't remember his name, but he had a boyfriend. But it was so brief and unfocused on that it felt like an afterthought to this person. They were complaining about how the little bit of representation that there was in the series was handled. And I don't know if like other people had been complaining about that or whatnot. I don't think I mentioned it much. And again, I mean, I don't even think Amaya and Janai were mentioned. So maybe it was just kind of like hint hint in the previous book. But this person was complaining, and they were saying that Dragon Prince has failed to live up to their promise, and it's disappointing, even with the show being otherwise really good. And it's not really something I had ever thought about. So to see the first episode of this book deliver on that promise by having Janai and Amaya get engaged and share a kiss on screen during a very beautiful and admittedly really nice and funny moment, it's really nice to see. And I'm wondering what that person thinks now that that's shown here. I don't know if there's going to be any more queer representation, if we're going to see Rayla's commander and his boyfriend again during this book, or if there's just going to be other characters who are confirmed as queer or new characters who are brought in. I don't know. But I'm hoping, and obviously don't spoil me. Do not spoil me. But I like that the very first episode has this scene in it. It's like these two have probably been together for these entire 2 years. And so after 2 years of dating and everything, Janai pops the question, and it's super cute, and she even learned sign language for it. Even though she didn't get it perfect, she learned sign language for it, which is so beautiful in and of itself. And even though she got it slightly wrong, Amaya still understood what she meant. I mean, the getting down on one knee thing kind of is a big clue. And it's so precious. It's so absolutely precious and beautiful. Like, even if it wasn't queer, it still would be, because it was still super well handled, and it's believable. Because again, there were hints of this at least in book three, and so it's so absolutely beautiful to see. It's just made even better for me that it is queer, that it is gay as fuck. Like, I love that. I just absolutely adore that. It is beautiful. It is so good. It is so fucking good. And it's definitely a really exciting way to get back into this. But again, even though most of the episode was very relaxed and again just kind of reintroducing you to everything, it's still enjoyable and it still feels fun. The only thing I would say is a negative about this is the flossing. But this would not be the first book that has had cringe in it. Like, do you guys remember my reaction to the Wonderwall joke? I was dead. That was so forced and cringe. It's not the first time. They've done cringe humor in this series. It just happens. As long as it's not constant, I'm okay with it. I can deal with some cringe humor sprinkled randomly throughout. Because a lot of the humor that we saw in this episode was still pretty much the same as you expect. Like with Soren and everything, and Corvus, them trying to hide the surprise party and everything. Like, that was what you would expect. That kind of humor is like, yeah, that's classic Dragon Prince. Also, I want to touch just briefly as we end, because I do want to end these afterthoughts. I do have other stuff to record. I do want to briefly touch on the updated looks. Callum and Ezrin don't look too different. Like, they look older, but only to a certain point, and it feels natural. Because, believe it or not, in 2 years, you're not going to look that different. You're going to look older, but not that different. So I feel like their aging was actually handled extremely well. And the only characters who I don't think look any different are Claudia and Viren. Viren, understandably, doesn't. That kind of makes sense. Because he was brought back to life basically from the point of his death. Claudia, the only difference is the hair. And she's, I think, old enough to where it's like the differences don't show between just a couple years. So that makes sense as well. But Soren looks notably different because of a different haircut and, facial hair and everything. He looks different. Corvus, I think, has a different haircut as well, if I'm remembering correctly. Some of the other characters, like the councilwoman, I don't remember her name, but she looks pretty much the same. But again, she's at that age where it's like it's not going to show too heavily. So yeah, I think the aging, the 2 year time skip was done well. I think it feels natural. It feels well handled in terms of design, in terms of just, again, how it was executed. So yeah, I think that this was a really good first episode back. And considering there's only 9 episodes, it's like they're gonna probably have to get to stuff pretty quickly, but I'm pretty damn excited after this to see what more this book has to offer. Again, this was pretty divisive, but I'm more on the positive side, honestly. If just from this first episode, if just from episode 1, I'm more on the positive side. But I would love to hear what you think. So tell me in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Book 4, Episode 1, or Chapter 1, I guess, of The Dragon Prince. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See you all next time.